It's Friday, July 11th. Welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. I am your host, Nick Capozzi. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick Capozzi, Nickcapozzi. Now, last week, we had our man TWhole, who handles the disgraces and the lights over at Razzball.com on. But we had, there was actually a big storm in Phoenix. We lost some power, so we could only get an audio version. But he is in demand, believe it or not, with our female viewers. So here he is. And you're all suited up, TWhole. You look purty.
Well, I'm trying to make up for last week. We all saw the Mel Gibson movie Conspiracy Theory, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly happened last week. I was suited up, ready to go, 4th of July, party, hyped up, stayed up all night for my big debut. And that happened, so I had to come back suited up once again. Maybe we'll tone it down next week.
All right, TWhole, you just changed your Twitter handle to make it a little shorter. What is it now? At TWhole, TEHOL
143.
Is that really what you did?
Yeah.
Now you're TWhole 143?
Yeah, 143 means I love you. Did you used to have a pager back in the day? 143 6969,
okay.
Whatever. You gotta have
piercing blue eyes as he said that. It got to me. Seriously, our female viewership has gone way up. Okay, let us talk disgraces and delights. We're going to start with delights today, and let's start with a guy who I like going into the season because this guy should have been the first pick overall in the draft a couple of years ago, if not for some injury issues. Anthony Rendon of the Washington Nationals. He's got 13 homers, 52 RBIs, and 8 swipes. This guy's legit. TWhole, tell me. I mean, it's pretty obvious, but he's a delight with a cherry on top.
Oh, he's a major delight. I was able to grab him in a couple leagues, just probably in the last few rounds. I always wait on the middle infield positions. And, I saw this guy. I always like the high upside guys, obviously, which has burned me to a certain extent this season. But, it's always nice when you get a guy who is actually a high pick coming through and producing as so. I mean, he only had 1 steal last year. The 8 steals is shocking. He's only been caught once. He's looking real fast out there, and, he's just raking. Bryce Harper's back in the lineup. Done nothing yet. Let's not get carried away, but that should only help Rendon going forward with more opportunities, scoring runs, more RBI. It's all there for him. And it doesn't look like he's slowing down at all, and he's definitely one of the steals of the entire draft.
Yeah, absolutely. He is legit. I know some guys were slow to come around on him, but I liked him again. The pedigree was there.
Yeah.
What round is he going in next year?
Well, that's a good question. He's like the third-ranked second baseman overall as of now. And plus he's young, so you got to give him a little more upside. If he continues that, if he doesn't fall off this year, he's going in the first 10 rounds, maybe top 7 rounds next year. Okay. I'm not going to take him in round 4.
You know what? I think in a lot of leagues he might go that high because he might wind up here with 25 homers, 15 steals, bat 280, 285. He's an interesting guy. Okay, also on your delight list, Manny Machado. This guy was on your disgrace list for much of the season. How is he flip-flopped on the lists?
Well, he's flip-flopped by, raising his average to 267 for hitting 522 in the month of July. Just raking. If we get this guy a shortstop, get J.J. Hardy, punt him out of there, dump him somewhere, maybe I don't know, just get him out of there so we can get the shortstop eligibility for next year for Machado, because this guy immediately, if he's at shortstop, immediately becomes you talked about Rendon going early. I'm taking this guy much early. If he continues at this rate, we're looking at a Troy Tulowitzki type shortstop in the future, in my opinion. I think he's that good, and he looks like the real deal to me, and just getting over the injury obviously held him back a little bit, and he's ready to go. Hopefully Chris Davis can pick it up too.
Anthony Rizzo hitting 300 for July, 20 bombs. Where does Rizzo go next year?
That's a great question, because this guy is, I knew he was solid, but this guy is looking like an MVP candidate if he was on a good team. He's stuck kind of in the Adrian Gonzalez for the Padres, kind of the old hit 40 homers but only have 99 RBIs because nobody else is worth anything in the whole lineup. He only hit 23 last year, so he's at 20 now. I mean, if he keeps it, if he hits 35 to 40, I mean, this guy's going, top 3 rounds.
Also, to Alcantara, who got called up by the Cubs yesterday, went nuclear against the Reds, and the Cubs said, "Sorry, Darwin Barney, you're out. He's 6% owned. Pick him up. He's got some upside for some pop and speed." You've got Kevin Kiermaier, 286 in the last week. Why is he a delight? I mean, he's a Tampa Bay Ray. I am down on Tampa right now.
Yeah, I just, I wanted to throw a deep sleeper out there.
Ooh,
The guy's
a
the
deep
park.
delight.
Yes, a very deep, deep delight. He's Parkland College, junior college, never played at a major college, played there, won 2 MVPs of the league. He raked. I mean, it's not like he's old and this is like some Steve Pierce fluke or some weird thing. I mean, he raked, and JC was probably, I think he was a 30th round pick or something like that, but he's already up. I mean, this is a couple years back. And you don't want to put this guy in every day. I'm thinking more of like if you have a daily league, because at home he's batting 338 at home, and that's when you want to stream him. I mean, he's got a jack on the week. I mean, he's hitting 296 this week overall, so it's like he's looking nice. He's a nice stream option at home, riding while he's hot, and I think there's some upside there where he's not just going to fall off a cliff immediately.
In Chicago, the Cuban fire hydrant, Dane Viciedo, he is also on your delight list. Now, this guy, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of always underrated because he's a 20 to 25 homer guy that is widely available, great stream option. You seen the same thing?
I'm definitely seeing the same thing. It looked to be troubling at the beginning of the year. He wasn't getting the playing time because they were kind of a crowded outfield. He wasn't starting every day. Now he's starting every day. He's 350 on the week, couple checks. Not too many better options in baseball when he's on one of these hot streaks, as we witnessed from last year. It was only kind of, he wasn't like Dominic Brown hot last year. He didn't have a streak like that.
You had to bring Dominic Brown up.
I
know
mean,
what?
like
no, I'm sorry. TWhole, if you're going to bring up Dominic Brown, I need to put the brakes on the show and go to break. So this is Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. We'll be back in just a moment with TWhole and his disgraces. We're back on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. Got my man TWhole, our disgrace and delight columnist over at Razzball.com. Okay, on the disgrace list at the top, this is a no-brainer. You've got Justin Verlander. What happened?
Well, if you recall, if you read any of my stuff last year, you would have known that I was all over this downfall, as I believe I traded him to you in one league last season. I just wasn't feeling. He just looked more hittable to me than I've ever seen him look, and it's gotten way worse this season. His Ks per 9 is down to over 2 strikeouts per 9 innings. I mean, the guy is totally falling off a cliff. I mean, the ERA is 4.84, 1.48 WHIP. I mean, he's one of the most hittable pitchers in the league. He's looking like CC Sabathia out there just getting shelled. This guy's
here's the problem. He's dating Kate Upton. Remember when Matt Kemp dated Rihanna? So I'm just going to throw this out there. For the good of all of fantasy baseball, TWhole, can you, kind of move in on Kate and make something happen there?
That's kind of my goal moving forward. Once Razzball takes off and Fantasy Sports Network gets me popping off, that's my number one goal in life. So that's where we're headed.
Starling Marte is also on your disgrace list. Was he just overhyped coming into the year? Is that the problem, or is he doing what he should be doing?
It looks like it. It looks like he was overhyped. I tended to have faith in the young guy, who hits 280, 41 steals. I mean, per game wise, the steals he might be on the same sort of pace, but he's missed some time. He only has 12, but what's most troubling is like the 227 average. It's just terrible. I mean, I was expecting a jump for all the young Pirates hitters, other than McCutchen. But yeah, it didn't happen at all. I mean, I was hoping Polanco would kind of get everyone sparked a little bit, which it has sparked the team a little bit. So I mean, there might be a chance he kind of gets on a hot one on the second half, but he's a disappointment to me. Definitely.
Okay, speaking of young Pirate hitters, Pedro Alvarez. Now, here's the thing. You've got him on your disgrace list, but I'm going to counter the argument. He's hitting 238 on the year, to be honest, that's probably a little bit more than I expected. He's got 14 homers, but he's a 30 to 35 homer guy. He gives you power, low average at a premium position.
Yeah, the thing that's concerning me is he's not on pace for 35 homers. I mean, he's got 14 homers. I mean,
I
he's
know, but first
half
half, second half.
Half of Nelson Cruz, technically over the first half mark already. I mean, it's just this. I wanted to see. I love this guy. I wanted to see, because I've seen him when he's hot. He seems
You just
like
how
could
he
be a
wears
pretty
his
solid
baseball
hitter.
cap.
Yeah, I mean, he's a monster, dude. I mean, I was hoping, this. I wanted the uptick to like 40 bombs. I mean, hit 240, hit 250. I mean, his average is up a little bit from last year, which is almost more concerning because the RBIs and homers are way down. So I don't know what's going on there. Pirates, not cool.
Chris Davis hitting 190 in the last week, 205 on the season. Chris with a C. Davis. What happened to this guy this year?
Oh man, this one stings. This one hurts deep. I mean, this guy was my boy. I drafted him every single year, just based upon his season he had for Texas a while back, and he finally paid off last year, obviously in a major way, as he was on all my teams. So this year I had to pass because he's going in the first round. Even for me, I'm like, whoa, let's not get carried away. There's always the chance for downfall of some sort. I obviously didn't expect it to this extent. He's one of my all-time favorite guys. I mean, 53 jacks last year. I mean, the power's there to a degree. I'd like to see. I think he's still a buy low candidate. I've been throwing some offers out there. I mean, I think he'll pick it up, but
I'm with you on that.
Still disappointing for him to.
Let me ask you a question. In a keeper league, I got offered Chris Davis for Gregory Polanco. I turned it down. I'd rather have Polanco, especially I'm kind of rebuilding that team right now. But would you rather have Polanco or Chris Davis going forward in a keeper league?
Yeah, I'm more on board with you. It's real hard for me to give up these major upside like young guys. I mean, Davis is still fairly young, but I'm with the prospects.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Chris Davis seems like he's been around for a while. He's only 28 years old.
Right.
So in keeper and dynasty formats, he's a good get this year as far as I'm concerned. Okay, last on your disgrace list is Ryan Braun. He is on pace for 19 home runs. Is he done?
I don't think he's done, but what's troubling me is I've hardly heard this guy's name all season long, and the Brewers have been in first place all year, and I'm hardly hearing about somebody who at one point was one of the best players in all of baseball, if not the best overall.
I made that argument. You're right.
This guy's coming just ultra limp right now. I don't. It's very 19 over the entire season.
The heck was that, man?
That was my air conditioning unit. Got to stay cool in here.
Is that a mimosa?
Yeah. It's going to be a long day.
So TWhole, just so it's out there, he's in charge of recruiting more female fantasy sports fans for us. Okay,
They're
no,
coming.
I'm just kidding. Listen, TWhole, really appreciate you joining us. Now, coming up in the next segment, what we taped it yesterday because we were able to get Stacey Stern of Head to Head Sports to come on. And it's actually, it's a really interesting segment, TWhole. You're going to want to stick around and watch it. Stacey, what she does is she is actually canvassing the state of Arizona, because she's based in Phoenix, to make fantasy sports legal. Because believe it or not, fantasy football, fantasy baseball, just regular, playing with your buddies, if you got a couple of nickels on it, is not legal. So she's going to break that down. I'm not kidding. She's also going to tell you why daily fantasy is legal, except in a couple states. It's actually really interesting stuff. So it's kind of a little bit of, business of fantasy sports. That's where we're trying to take that. So stick around for that segment. TWhole, listen, buddy, I want you to have a good weekend, and I'm going to see you up in Seattle because the tour starts. That's right, Razzball. We are hosting from the road. I'm packing up the studio, 32 fantasy football draft parties, 32 straight days in all 32 pro football cities, powered by the Fantasy Sports Network, and we kick it off in Seattle on August the 4th. You can get tickets at razzballtour.com. I'm going to see you up in Seattle, right, my man?
All weekend, we're going hard. It's going to be incredible. Everyone's coming out. If you live in Seattle and you don't come to this event, I don't know what to think of you. I mean, if you're not if you're a Razzball fan and you don't get up, if you live in Oregon, anywhere within 4 states from here, you need to be headed out here, even for the weekend.
Idaho, I'm looking at you.
You can stay at my house, sleeping bag.
I can just imagine him and I as a tandem. he'll just, I'm happily married, don't get me wrong, but if back in my single days, he would just pull the ladies in and then I would do the talking. I think that's how it would probably work.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us. What am I talking about? Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in a moment. Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. Okay, we're back on Razzball Radio and the Fantasy Sports Network, and I scored a big guest today, Stacey Stern, the general manager of Head to Head Sports. Welcome to Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Are you kidding? We're delighted. And I'm going to tell you why we have Stacey, and this is interesting. We're going to go with a slightly kind of business shift. It's a fantasy show, but it's fantasy business related. Stacey and I met at the Labor Draft in Phoenix this year, and she schooled me on daily fantasy sports. So here's the thing, because the one question I get a lot, Stacey, is, okay, is this really legal? And it is.
It is.
But why don't you kind of break down the legalities of daily fantasy sports?
Well, there are the restricted states where daily fantasy sports are not allowed to be played. And so you've got the companies like DraftKings saying, hey, we'd love to be able to offer our games to everybody in the United States, but Louisiana, Arizona, Washington, Montana, Vermont, it's really tricky because the laws are either it's dead against the law or it's arbitrary the way that you read it or interpret it. And so it's not something that they want to mess with. So what I'm working on specifically in Arizona right now, and the FSTA, the Fantasy Sports Trade Association, is also working in the state of Iowa. We're working to get these laws updated and changed to make it very clear that fantasy sports are not gambling and they need to be separated as such.
And this sorry.
Oh, I was going to say the federal government has already made this clear in the 2006 Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act. So we're asking the states to say, hey, update your laws. Let's get with the program and realize what the federal government has already realized.
And that's what's really interesting here is that in 2006, it was actually the NFL that lobbied to make fantasy sports a skill game, which is what it is, correct?
Right. That's correct. It is a game of skill. Following the rules of making sure that your contest isn't based on one game or one outcome. You can't have picking all Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants because that is where it would be considered gambling. But when you're picking players from multiple teams, from multiple games, this is where it becomes a game of skill. And you can see this specifically in daily fantasy sports because you see a lot of the same guys winning night after night. They've got their algorithms, they've got their formulas,
right.
And I think that's the biggest argument on why it's not gambling.
Okay, now you actually run head-to-head sports, which is based in Arizona, and this is something that's really interesting because I just moved to Arizona, of course, to do this show here. By the way, you can play with us every day at DraftKings.com. Get the link in the post. But you have actually been lobbying the state of Arizona to get this pushed through here.
I have. I actually have been working with my state senator, Adam Driggs, who's a neighbor of mine, and it was over a dinner conversation in the neighborhood, and he had no idea that this was a problem. He had played fantasy sports with his buddies but had no clue. And the estimates in Arizona alone are there are around 900,000 fantasy sports players who are disenfranchised from being able to play daily fantasy sports, from being able to even play a season-long game on ESPN and win a prize. You can't win anything of value.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. I have a friend who won a streak for the cash on ESPN.
Yep.
Should have won $2,000 and instead was given an Adrian Peterson bobblehead.
Wow.
Because of his zip code.
Holy cannelloni. Okay, so listen, seriously, I'm here in Arizona. I'm in. I love daily fantasy. Of course, we cover a ton of it here on Razzball Radio. What can I do?
Stay tuned. What we're working on now, because we had a bill that was drafted and became dead in this last legislative session, Senator Driggs and I are going to continue to push this fall, but we're also going to push a PR campaign because I don't think that a lot of Arizona residents even know that this is going on, and they don't know that it's illegal to be playing for money. You and your 11 buddies, you play a season-long game, you're putting money in, and somebody's taking a little bit off the top. Illegal. Can't do that.
Wait a minute. Sorry. You're telling me actually playing, forget daily, playing fantasy football is not legal in Arizona?
Not if there's any money exchanging hands. I know.
I'm moving. I was looking for an excuse to move to Denver. I just found it.
Oh, you can go join Brad Evans up there. He just moved to Denver. So
Brad.
That's right. So it's really, again, it's very unclear the way the law is written now.
Hmm.
So we're going to be making a PR push. I'm looking to try to get a website, and I will definitely let you guys know, because if we can get people to talk to their state legislators, let them know we want our fantasy football, we want our fantasy baseball, we want our fantasy basketball. This is not criminal activity. This is a hobby. It's a game of skill, and we all want to be able to enjoy it.
Holy cow. Listen, now that I'm living in the U.S., I want the right to protest. So, give me
That's
a
right.
card, give me a big sign. I'm in. What can I do? Wow, I didn't realize. You know what? You just blew my mind. I thought we were talking just from a daily perspective, but listen, Arizona, get mobilized. Iowa, Montana, Washington, because there's 6 states, I think. Arizona, Iowa, Louisiana,
Yeah.
Montana, Washington, Vermont.
Yep. That's right.
And
That's
my
right.
hometown province of Quebec. Well, they're backwards
Oh
on
yeah,
every.
that's right. Quebec is out. They're not on the list. That's right. They're not approved. So it's just a matter of education. It's a matter of people knowing that fantasy sports is not gambling, should not be, even considered in with gambling. And in Arizona specifically, we have an issue with tribal gaming where they're concerned about fantasy sports. They're very concerned about daily fantasy sports coming into Arizona because they believe that's going to eat into their profits. When I'm saying they're not the same person. The person sitting there at the slot machine
Right.
all day long is not the person who wants to play daily fantasy sports.
Wow, that is really this has been fascinating. At Stacey Stern, Stacie. She's a great follow. She's also going to come out to the Phoenix tour stop when we hit the tour in Phoenix 8/8. Real quick, there was some major news. So let's break it, Stacey. What happened today?
Big time news for our friends DraftKings. Looks like they have acquired Draft Street as of today. I've heard
Shut
it's
the
a done
front door.
deal. I will not shut the front door. No, it's exciting news because we're all watching this space and we know how competitive it is with DraftKings and FanDuel and Draft Street. Those are the big three. So for DraftKings to come in and get Draft Street, that's a big play in this space.
Wow, that is absolutely mind-blowing. Stacey, look, really appreciate you joining us today. Again, at Stacey Stern, CIE, not with a Y, on Twitter. She is leading the charge, people. So, A, you want to follow her. B, Stacey, we'd love to have you on. Anytime there's news, we want to talk about this. We want to find out what we can do. Of course, though, guys, in the other states, you can play daily fantasy. If you can play fantasy football, you can play daily fantasy. You want to play at DraftKings.com, and you absolutely want to enter promo code Razzball. Stacey, again, thanks for joining us today on Razzball Radio on the Fantasy Sports Network. We'll be back on Monday with some special guests. All-Star Week next week, so we're giving Gray the week off. We got some great stuff coming up on Monday.